This is the Senate's second day back at work after summer recess, and one committee wasted no time diving back into the climate discussion. The Agriculture Committee held a 3-hour hearing today on carbon markets and producer groups that would be affected by pending cap-and-trade legislation. The star witness at the hearing, CFTC Chairman Gary Gensler. But we start our team coverage with Clean Skies' Tyler Suiters. He talked with some committee members about the prospect of a cap-and-trade plan. So Tyler, there is, I guess, resistance from ag senators on both sides.
Right, Susan. And think about what we saw on the House side during negotiations over the Waxman-Markey bill. The House Agriculture Committee, led by Chairman Collin Peterson, threatened to hold up proceedings because these senators wanted certain things in this legislation. The result, their big win, is that they received the USDA jurisdiction here that the Ag Department could define carbon offsets. So what will the Senate Ag Committee receive? Well, one theory is it may get CFTC oversight over these markets. With that in mind, the Commission's Chairman Gary Gensler was testifying today, but at least one senator I talked to after the hearing said that his biggest concern isn't why we need a cap and trade, but how in the world will we implement it, especially during such difficult economic times. Concerns about cap and trade more about the structure of the markets and what Chairman Gensler talked about today, or just the economic impact potentially?
Well, for me, it's mostly economic impact. I mean, obviously, it's, you know, there are lots of different ways you could do this. You could do it cap and trade. You can do. There's a lot of discussion about even just doing some sort of a tax on it. At least there's certainty with that. But to me, it's the notion of doing it in the first place, considering the impact that it would have on the economy at a time when the economy is trying to recover. And so, logic would dictate that when you've got an economy in recession that you don't raise taxes, and this would be a big tax. And I think it would be very disproportionately felt. I think the regional disparities, which hasn't been talked about a lot yet, would be felt the most in places like the Midwest, and the people who I represent that make their living in agriculture.
So once again, Susan, for the second day in the row, I've talked to a senator who mentions the issue of regional concerns regarding a cap and trade. The big ones here, of course, outside of agriculture, those states that are coal producers and also coal users.
Now, Tyler, you were also at the last big Agriculture Committee hearing that involved climate legislation. Any shift in support you're noticing among the members that you're talking to?
Well, among the Democrats, there are several that have their doubts. Among them, Blanche Lincoln from Arkansas, also Bob Casey from Pennsylvania. And then there's Kent Conrad. I didn't see him at today's hearing, but he is a member of the original Gang of 10, which was developed last year. He did not, but said he would have voted for Boxer, Lieberman, Warner last summer, which ultimately failed on a procedural vote. He says that Waxman-Markey is better than last year's Senate climate bill, but still not perfect. So I think you can call him on the fence about this. As for Republicans on the Ag Committee, they are opposed to any cap and trade plan across the board. One of the most staunch opponents is Mike Johanns. He is a freshman senator. He's been on this committee for a matter of months, but he is also a former agriculture secretary, so his voice carries great weight among the other members of the committee. And when I talked to him today, he echoed some of the comments he made to me back in July after the hearing you mentioned. That is a USDA study about the potential benefits of carbon offsets for the agriculture community, a study that he has serious doubts about.
Now we have another study from Texas A&M. Texas A&M does good work, and basically what they have found out is that the credits really aren't going to generate the income for agriculture. It's going to be higher prices. Now, higher prices for corn and soybeans, if you're raising corn and soybeans, is always good. However, if you're buying it, if you're a cattle feeder, if you're a pork producer, if you're a dairy farmer, this is bad news because those folks are going broke as it is. And so you add higher corn prices to their ledger and it doesn't turn out well. So I really think there's an untold story here, and that story is that you're going to have a lot of downside.
Now, I mentioned the aspect, Susan, that the USDA under Waxman-Markey would be able to define carbon offsets. I talked to Senator Johanns about that back in July. He said he had concerns that the department wasn't well equipped enough to handle that particular issue. Well, I'd also talked to the current Ag Secretary, Tom Vilsack, back then. He said, yes, clearly, we have the mechanisms and we have the personnel in place to handle that duty. Susan?
Harry Reid seems ready to move Chairman Tom Harkin.
It sounds like that is imminent, as a matter of fact. The caucus luncheons ended just a short time ago, but that was number one among the discussions there. Waiting to hear a final word in terms of the job being offered to Tom Harkin. That is the chairman of the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. The chairmanship belonged to Ted Kennedy. Since Christopher Dodd elected to remain as chairman of the Senate Banking Committee, the offer is now apparently on the table for Tom Harkin. And immediately after today's hearing, he was asked about that. I was there as he discussed this and seemed to be genuinely uncertain about exactly what lies ahead for him and his chairmanship on the Ag Committee.
Well, I have not seen any statements yet. I keep checking my BlackBerry, and I'm on my way to the caucus, and I understand he's making a decision in the caucus, and I assume we'll have something to say after the caucus. And I'm late to get there, right?
Mr. Chairman, a quick comment.
Very late to get there. I just late. I got to get over there.
So this is your last hearing as chairman of this committee.
I don't know. I'll know in a while.
How quickly will you make up your mind?
Well, things will probably move pretty rapidly, I would assume.
Probably today.
I would think so. Yes. I would make up my mind today.
So a confirmation that he should receive an offer and apparently accept that offer to become the new Health and Education Chairman. That means the new Agriculture Chairman will most likely be Blanche Lincoln from Arkansas. That is, in fact, what the Wall Street Journal is reporting, quoting her as saying, "I'm next in line." So she seems very eager to assume that chairmanship. She is currently a member of the Energy Committee. She said today, reiterating her position during the testimony, that she is not a fan of the cap-and-trade system. That may color what goes through the Agriculture Committee going forward on a climate bill. Another issue, Susan, is that this change could affect not only the climate bill that we're expecting from Senators Boxer and Kerry, but also the Clean Energy Leadership Act, which came out of Lincoln's committee, and the renewable energy standards, which he has questions about, coming from Arkansas, all the way through the potential for renewable fuel standard changes going forward. This would move someone who was very much from a corn state, that is Tom Harkin in Iowa, to Blanche Lincoln, who is from Arkansas, not a corn producer, but she says she is proud to be a farmer's daughter. Again, waiting for confirmation on that shift in the Ag Committee chairmanship.
Right. We'll find out if it does turn out to be her. Tyler Suiters, thank you.
Of course.